I've shown you this patch cable 1 meter length with PL259 connectors at both ends. This is a very easy to use cable as it is very thin. It is not costly. It is known as HLF 200 cable. I use the same cable for my satellite operations. But this being a thinner cable will have higher losses than thicker cables. But I escaped because I have my antenna on my balcony and the radio is just in the adjacent room. So total length of HLF 200 cable I use for my satellite operations is just 10 meter, the minimum possible, the shortest length available with pre-crimped connectors. These are pre-crimped connectors because I don't have to do anything when I buy it. I get it just like this. So it's easy for use. This I purchased in the beginning of my second coming to ham radio. And HLF 200 10 meter cables I have 2 or 3 I have purchased that I am using for my LEO satellite, low Earth orbit satellite operations. Even though the best one for satellite operation is either an RG213 or still better hardline or hemi hardline, half hardline. Those are the highest levels of cables, but they are very thick and very difficult to manage and naturally more expensive also. And initially I didn't know where to get all those. That's how I went for HLF 200 cable, and I am not a high-end satellite operator, so I am happy with HLF 200 cables for my LEO satellite operations. Now this is the RG213 cable I was mentioning. You can see that it is quite thick compared to this HLF 200 cable, which is very thin. I am finding it very difficult to hold this because this is very heavy. This one also came with a pre-crimped connector, PL259 connector at one end, and other end also had one. Actually I had bought 30 meters of this cable because that was the only one available with pre-crimped connectors. I did not know how to use ordinary connector and crimp it. So I bought pre-crimped connectors, and soldering a connector is not easy for such cables because the outer conductor or the shield has to be soldered. It is more difficult. You need higher power soldering iron. Central conductor, it is relatively easy to solder, but outer connector to solder is difficult. That is how you can, if you closely see, there is another sleeve here. This sleeve is for crimping. That is, the outer sheath of the coax is just placed inside, and then this is pushed in. This is a heat shrink shield. I have shown a video of how I crimped an RG213 with PL259 later on in my new entry to ham radio. Initially I did not use it. Initially I used the whole 30 meter cable for my HF radio. Then what happened was that this length was surplus, and this was kept as a coil within the shack, and none of the signals seem to be going out. I thought this could be the reason. Extra cable kept as a coil, huge coil within the shack. Then what I did was I just cut it here, and the first antenna I used was a simple dipole antenna. For the dipole antenna I just separated the points over here and just twisted it onto the ends, that is central portion of the dipole antenna. I didn't have a balun. Now I have a 1:1 balun at the central feed point of my dipole antenna. Earlier I did not have, and now I have crimped a connector there also. I bought PL259 connectors which can be crimped. I bought online, and I have done that. That is learning curve. I am not sure when that will fall down because my crimping technique may not be as good as the crimping technique they have used from the manufacturer side. Anyway, I have done that. So this is the cut end. What I did was cut off this exactly at the middle. So this is 15 meters of cable, and Now whatever is there on my fan dipole is another 15 meters. A new connector was connected here and a balun was bought. This PL259 connector was connected to the balun, and other side of the balun I have the feed points of the antenna. That's how I managed. Now suppose you want to join two cables. This you will not need to join because these are just patch cables, 1 meter cables. There is no need for joining this. But suppose you want to join these two. For example, I was having two sets of HLF 200 cable, both 10 meters. And I first put up my antenna as the radio was on the ground floor and the antenna on the terrace. Initially I put it up with 10 meter. Then I wanted to increase it. So for increasing the length, I didn't have a longer cable, that is 20 meter cable with PL259 connectors on both ends. So what I did was I bought a barrel connector. This is the barrel connector. You can see that barrel connector has SO239 connectors at both ends. This is the barrel connector which I used to connect those two cables. I'll show it here. I'll put this barrel connector here. One end is connected, screwed in to the PL259, and after that I am connecting the other end. So this is a secure connection between the two cables. Both cables have only PL259 at either end. So I'm using a barrel connector to connect two sets of cables. The advantage is that there is no mismatch there. All the cables and connectors are having the same impedance of 50 ohms, and if they are good quality, the loss there will be minimum. A crude method which I used to do earlier was just solder the connectors, the coax. I have shown you the cut end of the coax earlier. Long back I used to solder and do those things, but that was not the ideal way. When you want to join cables, this is the way to join cables. You should have PL259 at both ends, and you have to use a barrel connector to connect between the cables in a secure. If you like my video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe as well.